Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press, and thank you for being here. I wish to speak to Bermuda this afternoon in respect of restoring our economy, encouraging equitable wealth creation, and economic success. Bermuda's main problem today is its broken economy, clearly evident by massive and rising debt, a lack of investor and business confidence, rising cost of living, high job losses, and employment attrition. The unfortunate, harsh results of this economic malaise are all too personal for an increasing number of Bermudians. It is hurtful to the OBA to see the numbers of Bermudians who daily line up for support needed just to get by, and to hear the stories of suffering as we canvass our constituencies. Just today, we read reports of an increased number of people on financial assistance before COVID-19 struck. Our declining economy is one that all Bermudians must confront now. It is one of several reasons, but the most compelling one, why you should vote for a new One Bermuda Alliance government. The OBA's record for economic stability and fiscal responsibility is second to none. It was an OBA government which in just 4 years brought $1 billion of investment to our country and created jobs. It should be noted here that the One Bermuda Alliance increased payroll tax on the highest paid and decreased it for the lowest. It was a very firm foundation for the Burt administration to follow and to build on. But prudent policies have been replaced with fluff, the majority of which has been an anticlimax for our people, as unrealistic promises have not been fulfilled, and the few projects that saw any light were way short of David Burt's lavish promises. Today, a massive PLP debt is choking the economy. The Burt administration has added $1 billion to the debt in just 12 months. The Burt administration has flattered to deceive. Even now, they are playing politics with the people's money. This works in the mind of magician Burt. But such deception and ineptitude destroys investor confidence and, worse, people's lives. What can be more frivolous and offensive than the Burt administration putting forward as a policy an arrangement for seniors to borrow money? What seniors want is the protection of their hard-earned assets so that they can enjoy their golden years without the worry that they feel now. We are now hearing about $800,000 given by the Premier to a carpetbagger. This is money that could have gone to alleviating the suffering of our citizens. We are all left to wonder what else will come out of the shadows. But there is hope ahead. We will not pretend that the road ahead will be an easy one. It has never been party policy to make fanciful promises simply because it is an election, and we will not do so in this election. The OBA believes in the people of Bermuda over politics. We believe in the resilience of our people and our strength in overcoming the hurdles as long as there is transparency, a government that tells it as it is and plots a clear path ahead. And that is what the OBA is promising. The OBA firmly believes that it requires the inclusion of all sectors and all Bermudians to take our country forward. The welfare of the people will inform our policies, and we will engage all relevant groups in framing the economic initiatives that we intend to execute to make Bermuda better. We pledge that the OBA will exercise fiscal responsibility whilst ensuring a safety net for the most vulnerable. Our economic policies and programs are seated in reality, what is necessary and doable, and will always be people-centered. a simple economic truth. You cannot borrow your way out of trouble. You cannot borrow your way to prosperity. That is Economics 101. Everyone knows that, except from the clear evidence, the Premier. Mindless borrowing, instead of the needed proper management, only postpones the inevitable day of reckoning when the sleight of hand and band-aids can no longer hold. David Burt knows that day is at hand for the PLP, hence the rush to have an election in a pandemic, another unconscionable action that disregards the priorities of our country and the anxieties of our citizens. Apart from stifling growth, increased debt also saddles our young people with a PLP inheritance that leaves nothing in its will, as, if left unchecked, all they will have are debt repayments. Our country, especially our young people, deserve better. So, our overall framework for progress will be a check on massive borrowing and debt reduction, removal of disincentives to doing business, small business development targeted at Bermudians, and nurturing of new sector around young people and their love and acumen with technology and entertainment, and addressing issues such as immigration policy to derive more spending and long-term investments in Bermuda. The OBA will also pivot Bermuda from its somewhat disconnected approach to development to a more integrated, well-informed, and results-oriented paradigm that will link education and training to development needs on the basis of research data. Along with encouraging the platforms for our young people and Bermuda to seize the lucrative opportunities in the tech world and the worldwide cultural industries, the OBA will position our country as an international resource and research center around our natural assets. There is much to do, but one critical step will be the rationalization of the heavy taxes on Bermudians and the removal of the sugar tax. We urge every Bermudian to pause and consider the current circumstances of reckless management of your money, the PLP's addiction to borrowing, Bermuda's mountain of debt, and the harshness of everyday living because of high and climbing prices. We urge every Bermudian to analyze our solid proposals, which are well considered, achievable, will stabilize our economy, and set us up for growth and jobs. We urge every Bermudian to understand that there is no investor confidence in BERT and the PLP. The wild running around at this last minute, handing out money that Bermuda can ill afford for electioneering purposes, is exactly the reason why investors have no confidence in BERT and the PLP. And without investments, we as a country do not grow. We need the best for Bermuda now, and the best for Bermuda is the OBA. We will do better.
Good afternoon. Before COVID-19 struck, Bermuda's economy had stalled. The level of GDP, a key indicator of the health of the economy, was falling. Taxes have been increased and new taxes introduced. Government charges have also increased. No one can say with any honesty that they are better off under the BERT administration. 700 jobs have been lost with the closure of Southampton Princess. Where will those people turn to? What jobs will they be able to get? Will they be forced to leave Bermuda to see opportunities that do not exist here? It is against that backdrop that I want to outline some One Bermuda Alliance policies that will help Bermuda and Bermudians. The OBA will repeal the sugar tax, reduce the tax on purchasing US dollars, and reassess all new and burdensome BERT administration taxes which have increased your cost of living. Make job creation the primary focus of all economic planning. We must revive future Bermudian jobs, opportunities to anticipate how best to renew our economy. Improve standards of living in Bermuda by creating an environment that attracts foreign investment into our country, allowing for job creation. Ensure our people are empowered with the necessary skills to take advantage of job opportunities so Bermudians flourish as entrepreneurs and business owners. Work with banks, international businesses, and other organizations to address the systemic inequalities that affect Bermudians. Enhance the circulation of cash flow by increasing loans available to small businesses. Work to reduce Bermuda's massive debt by controlling public spending and generating economic growth in existing and new market sectors to ensure job creations for Bermudians. Implement a duty deferral system for the retail sector to ensure these Bermudian jobs survive. Identify ways to reduce the cost of living. The social impact of Bermuda's high cost of living has impacted negatively in many areas, including the emigration of Bermudians to other jurisdictions. We must stem the flow of our intellectual capital, our people. Implement recommendations from Bermuda First, the SAGE Commission, and the Fiscal Responsibility Panel. Integrate green technology into all aspects of Bermuda, including encouraging the increased use of solar power. The green economic recovery is central to recovery overall. Gradually stop social assistance once a job is secured that pays sufficiently to give hope to the recipient and a clear path to self-sufficiency. Adopt a ladder scheme whereby small businesses progressively gain access to larger government contracts. Redefine the 60% ownership rule from Bermudians to residents to encourage investment into Bermudian businesses from those who are already committed to Bermuda. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. One of the most important things any government can do is to create the framework that maximizes opportunities for job creation. Having a job is the biggest social safety net, and having a job leads to better self-esteem. We have, over the last few days, outlined some initiatives that the One Bermuda Alliance believes will help people find jobs. We have pledged to create economic development scholarships, which will help students development and progress in existing and newly emerging industries. And we said that with the aid of our workforce development team, we will streamline the transition from education to working life. But we will do more. A One Bermuda Alliance government will use connected thinking and real data about our job market, skills, and opportunities to connect Bermudians to jobs that actually exist. Reduce the cost of business in Bermuda by removing red tape wherever possible. Encourage and promote next sector jobs in the entertainment and technological areas, including robotics, animation, design, music, and importantly, the environment, so that our young people who are naturally oriented towards these cutting-edge sectors can use their skills and creativity to earn a living. We also need to place more emphasis on future generations and ensure young people are able to enter the job market. Too many of our young people do not see upward mobility or job offerings that entice them to stay in Bermuda. We need to give them a foot in the door. To that end, the One Bermuda Alliance will look at introducing tax incentives. for employers who hire young people in entry-level jobs, such as in hospitality. And we would look to increase paid internships that lead to job placements. I believe that initiatives such as those I've outlined, along with the plans my colleagues have spoken about, will lead to a better economy, one that will provide opportunities for all. We will do better. Thank you.
Question?
We're happy to take questions.
Monday or Tuesday, a few days ago, when the Premier released his platform, he spoke of fintech, gaming, ganja, marijuana, cannabis. What is the OBA stance on those three? Gaming, number one, the cannabis reform, and the possibility of generating business and money from marijuana.
Okay, firstly, fintech, which I'm going to address these in the order in which you've asked the questions. Fintech is something that was promised by the 2017 platform of the PLP government, and we noticed that very little has been done in order to make that an actuality. There have been very few jobs that have been created, notwithstanding that I do believe that we've put the necessary legislative framework in place. The actual coming on board of companies has been a trickle, and the expected output and outcome have not materialized. So obviously any technological advancement that is going to benefit Bermuda is something that we obviously have to consider, but we cannot make grandiose promises, and we will not make grandiose promises on things until we are certain that those things can actually materialize. That's firstly. In respect of gaming, gaming has been a football that has been around for the majority of the time that I've actually been in Parliament. It's a question of on again, off again. The challenges that have existed have been the ability to bank gaming proceeds. And as a result of the challenges that existed in that respect, it has not been able to be advanced. I do know that we were promised many times over to look into gaming. We, as an OBA former administration, actually looked into gaming and tried to determine the methodology by which cashless gaming could come into being. There was still a difficulty. So how the banks will be able to overcome their restrictions with respect to their international standards under AML and KYC regimes are able to be crossed, then we will then have to figure it out with respect to gaming. I don't believe that it is a lost concept, but I believe at this point in time there is still much work that needs to be done, and the people of Bermuda, more importantly, have to be informed as to what it is that they want to do. Thirdly, your question with respect to marijuana, cannabis reform. We had seen just before the House closed, we had seen legislation that had been produced by the PLP administration, none of which was able to address the issues and concerns that people had about marijuana. It looked as though the legislation was designed to ensure that people who have money are the ones who will benefit. When they spoke of how people can financially empower themselves as a result of marijuana legalization or marijuana reform, the legislation that was tabled certainly did not do that. So what I will say in respect of that is that if there is going to be an approach towards marijuana, and I keep saying marijuana, it's cannabis reform. If there's going to be an approach towards cannabis reform, it's going to have to be inclusive. It's going to have to be mindful of the negative impacts and ensure that there are schemes and plans and programs in place to address anybody who may come out on the negative end. We have to look at times not just at the money that is being created by an industry, but also the protections for our people to ensure that they don't fall through the cracks.
You do know that a lot of Bermudians, it's been a part of our culture, smoking marijuana.
Yes.
what's been changed basically is the amount of marijuana one thing carries. If the police come and take up to a quarter of an ounce of it,
Right.
that's about $250 on the street. So the police come and get one individual, take the marijuana, he's just gonna go and buy more. So where is the benefits for those that smoke marijuana? Why not decriminalize? What's your view on that?
Well, I believe that our platform has effectively addressed that. However, but what I'm gonna say is that when it comes to marijuana use, we are dealing with different issues than we're dealing with the legislation that we're talking about, marijuana financial empowerment. I believe that the opportunity to decriminalize from the perspective of ensuring that people, that their records are expunged, that, historic use of marijuana should not, trail behind somebody from the cradle to the grave. That obviously is the right thing to do to make sure that our young people have opportunity. When it comes to the use of marijuana itself, how the legislation was drawn does not really address the issue to which you have referred in terms of accessibility. I do think, though, it is still very important to ensure that we are not building an economy that is based on the possible negative health impacts to our people.
Lastly, if you don't mind, can I?
I'd like to address your fintech question.
Okay.
Okay, did you want to, is your comment on marijuana?
No, I had a
Okay.
different question altogether. Go for it.
As you know, so I have a background in technology. So the fintech thing is, you have to ask yourself, what does Bermuda offer people to come to fintech? It's in the news, there's a lot of hype, and there are kernels of things in it that are very important for technology in the financial industry. But there are also a ton of scammers and hypers, and there are people bubbling up the market. So when we create a relationship or some kind of venture with somebody in the fintech space, we always need to, just like we would do any deal, ask ourselves, why do they want to do the deal with us? Why are they coming to Bermuda? Now, we have many good things to offer. We have great intellectual capital for an island of our size on both the business and technology side. We have a great regulatory framework, as you know, that's internationally respected in insurance and reinsurance, among others. And so we have to make sure that what we offer matches what people investing in fintech want, and that we're not just caught up in the hype, the gold bullion, and all of that kind of headline type stuff, because otherwise we could put our foot wrong, and that could reflect badly on our international reputation, and it may set us back in our attempts to do a good job with fintech.
My last question.
Okay, we're just gonna have Marcus.
Yes, in regards to the draft legislation for cannabis that was proposed by the PLP government, we felt it was dead on arrival simply because it did not address the issues that we felt was in our community. We did recognize that cannabis use has become a major part of our culture. We can't deny that. What we felt that we needed to do was address the whole issue in phases. Number one, as my colleague said, we wanted to deal with the decriminalization of cannabis first. We want to make sure that our young people have opportunities. We want to make sure that this record doesn't trail them for the rest of their lives. So that was first and foremost. Second of all, we wanted to make sure that there was things in place to ensure that our young people are protected, that those that are looking for rehabilitation can get it, that we can do a better bang-up job when it comes to prevention. We felt that finances needed to be allocated to that part of the equation. Once we felt that that was established, then we would then venture into looking at the commercialization of it. We will look at other jurisdictions to see best practices, to see how they fared about it. We wanted to make sure that all the framework was in place, that when we launched something like this or even considered it, everything was in place to protect our people. Now, you'll see in that draft legislation, for one thing, there was going to be a $750 annual fee for those that wanted to do personal cultivation. Now, I would talk to and ask the average man on the street, and they would say that is too expensive. If you're trying to make this whole cannabis usage and the commercialization to then put a $750 annual fee on the average working man, that's not, in my mind, doing anything to assist those working class people that possibly want to go into the commercialization of it. So from a regulation standpoint and from the cost of launching the business, we felt that the legislation was woefully inadequate to address the needs of Bermudians when it comes to the cannabis culture in this country.
My last question, thank you, is when you departed government back in 2017, there were a percentage of 2% or 4% unemployment, roughly about 2,400. Now there's about 5,000, 4,500 with the, I'll say 400 from Southampton to Princess, because at least 300 were foreigners, guest workers, forgive me. What is the OBA going to do to turn those numbers around?
Let me first say that employment is as a result of a stimulation of the economy, and you can only stimulate the economy when you create an environment for economic growth. We have seen a flatlining since 2017. There has been nothing to stimulate the economy. So some of the job losses, the retraction in the retail industry, which you've seen has been tremendously impacted over the last couple of years, pre-COVID. And of course, COVID has exacerbated that whole situation. So we have to go back to basics. We have to ensure that our environment is created such that we can encourage inward investment, that we can encourage assisting small businesses. And I do know that we have the Small Business, the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, into which funds have been channeled in order to make money available. That is a good plan that we will continue, because it is important for companies, small companies, Bermudian companies, and international business to be able to have the confidence that's necessary and to know that their affairs are being dealt with on an even basis, that it is not going to be the ebbs and flows that we've seen over the course of the last years in terms of preferential treatment here and no treatment in another arena. So we have to create a fair and balanced environment, and I believe that that will assist in the growth of jobs when you assist in the growth and the success of companies.
Thank you all very much. Fiona McWhirter from the Royal Gazette. With regards to the removal of the sugar tax, when the sugar tax was implemented, we heard customers talk about non-sugary items that may have had their prices increased as well. If the sugar tax was removed, how do you then make sure that those savings are passed on to customers?
The thing is that there is legislation that had been passed in terms of what prices are and the government's ability to obtain prices that exist that are put on various products in the stores. Again, that is a good piece of legislation that we have the opportunity to go in and find out. There is no way that we are going to reduce any tax, reduce a sugar tax, and not monitor the impact in the grocery stores. We are, reducing the sugar tax, which effectively means that the cost now that has been escalated, the markup that has been put onto some of the goods, which will no longer be required. It's not meant to be a windfall for the grocers. So we will ensure that those things are monitored, and that there is no advantage, no mean advantage being taken because of the reduction or the removal of sugar tax. What the sugar tax has done is almost across the board increase the cost of groceries. When you go into the grocery store, the cost of your basket of goods is now prohibitive. And it is all said that these are the sugar tax items, but when you look at something that used to cost $3.10, that's now $4.50, that's just not on, and these are things that we will continue to monitor. The people of Bermuda cannot continue to afford those price increases, and we have to and that's one of the reasons we want to turn back the sugar tax. I will also say that the intent initially of the sugar tax was promulgated as one that would make people healthier, that money would be ring-fenced for education and for health reasons. That has never happened. So if it really has become a cash grab for the consolidated fund. So rather than perpetuate that, that situation, it just makes good sense to get rid of it.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Gray Miners of Bermuda Broadcasting. I was wondering, how do you plan to minimize the negative economic impact of the Fairmont Southampton closure?
That's a good question, and I'm sure that not only those within the industry, the hospitality industry, but the Bermuda as a whole is concerned about that. For those 700 workers that are now finding themselves out of work, it can be an opportunity for retraining, repositioning. It is an opportunity for these folks to look to another industry, another career, to get their skill sets up to par. We would expect the Fairmont group, once the renovations have been done, which we know it's going to be a substantial amount of money, we would look to see that those 700 workers are first in line to be able to receive that job. But in answer to your question, I believe it's an ideal opportunity for repositioning, retraining, new opportunities as far as other industries that they can get involved with. Now we see from out of the OBA government, there were a few hotel projects that were begun and are now finishing up, and now they're getting ready to launch their new hotels. We think of St. Regis, we think of Azura, they're on South Shore. These are projects that started under the OBA government. Now we're seeing the fruits of those labors. We can now say that possibly there's opportunities for some of these 700 workers to look for employment in these new hotels that are opening. So as the OBA government, we like to think that we are a government that will look towards opportunities in unfavorable conditions. We can look for a shining light, which is being able to retrain, redevelop our people for other industries, and in the case of these new hotels, opportunities for them to work there.
Thank you. Second question, you mentioned stemming the outflow of human capital and brain drain from Bermuda. The PLP in their platform handbook said that they planned on rolling out incentives to get Bermudians that have emigrated to come back home. Do you have anything similar? When they were asked, they mentioned building low-cost housing in Hamilton with 5% down payment for a mortgage. Do you have anything similar in the works?
Well, before I pass it on to my colleagues, I would want to say this. We need to find out first and foremost why they left. I believe that we need to ask the question and survey our young and older people with their families that have left our shores. Why did you leave? Some left for further education, right? Some left to put their kids, young kids in. We know that unfortunately some were escaping the gang life in Bermuda. So there's a wide array of reasons why they left. So before we structure solutions or incentives to get them back, let's first find out why they left, and then we can move on to bring about plans to get them back.
So you need to add anything else?